any advice to the youngsters who graduating, they're looking or graduating, doing the schools, trying to graduate, trying to do your masters? What advice do you have for them as the 18-year-olds you were back then, trying to choose the path that they want to choose? Because it's a tough one right now.
My cousin's 18, going through this journey right now. We have a friend in real estate who's 18 as well.
Okay.
So, like, we often discuss, like, Adam and I, like, looking back then, like, they're at different levels. And you got to remember, COVID's affected their generation probably more than any other generation. They missed out on 2 years of education, the social aspect as well. So I think it's tough, like, as the older generation looking down them, no one can really say what it's like to be in their shoes, like, from a mental aspect as well. I think the main thing, if I was to go back when I was 18, I was stuck in my ways, so to speak. Like, even though I was very good at education, I've never read a book outside of education or, like, for exam-related purposes. I only read my first book when the first lockdown hit, and I'm pretty sure that was one of the ones you recommended as well. Since then, I've probably read a book once or twice a month, and that changed my life. Like, understanding myself or understanding, like, an aspect of whatever it is, you can pick up in a book and learn quicker than anything else. As someone that absorbs information quickly, that's the quickest way of learning for me. So I think exploring in that sense, finding out what interests you, to pick up a book and read. And I think first things first is more to understand yourself, conquer your own mind, understand, like, what makes you tick, and you can get that through books. I'm sure you'd agree there, right?
Yeah, I'd agree there. And two things I'd add on top of that, apart from books, is one, if you are like 18, a lot of young people, especially with COVID and stuff, it's hard to, like, you couldn't go out pretty much at all. But if I could go back in time or speak to anyone who's 18 in the UK, I would say make sure you still get your fitness in, because I think the way gym or going to the gym and the routine that instills, how it, like, transforms the rest of your sort of personality, your structure, your discipline, is something that can be beneficial throughout, like, your whole life. And so that is what I would recommend to everyone who's, like, 18 or below, or even just, like, young males, because it adds a lot of structure to your day, and the benefits, once you start, go far beyond just physique. Then with that, which is somewhat of a superset to it, is just stick with it. One thing Jake and I say always is you got to be patient in the long term, but aggressively disciplined in the short term. And it's so hard to be, like, patient in the long term. You just want everything now. But if you can be patient with the vision for the long term and just be pushing it as much as you can in the short term, you'll get there for sure.
Just to add to that as well, when we was finishing up, when I was Adam's tutor, I said to him, "You're 18 now. If you don't go gym, you're going to get fat. This is the age where it catches up to you." When I saw him, like, a year later at Nando's, this guy had practically tripled his size. He was heavier than me at that point. So his point is very critical. Like, start that fitness routine now. It'll carry your mental health, your physical health for a long time. And it's harder to get into it as you get older, as I think everyone knows. But I also think, to add to that, as an 18-year-old, 19-year-old, just take risks. Like, if you're in a blessed position where you can lose everything, start over again, like we have multiple times, like, just take the risk. We came to Dubai having never traveled here. We left incredible careers knowing we could go back to it, knowing we could fly back to the UK. And, like, some people are put off by that. They're not willing to take that risk. But what have you got to lose? At 25 now, we could probably start again in another industry. Not that I don't think we have any plans to, but why not? Like, you're on this planet for such a short time, but also a very long time in that respect as well. You can start over, you can try different things and continually learn and grow in different ways. So just risk everything, try everything, like, find out what ticks for you and what works for you.
Sound advice, guys. What is the book that you recommended, Jake?
So the book I recommended Jake, it was a book, it was around Stoicism. My mum's a big fan of Stoicism, which is a type of sort of classic philosophy. There's a few main philosophers, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, excuse my pronunciation if I got that wrong. But this one was, I believe, called The Art of Living.
Nice.
I read that. That was about a 90-page book. It was so easy to read because it was, like, probably, like, a small paragraph for each page. So it was great as, like, a first book to pick up. And it was probably the first book that gave me guidance on how to live life. Adam's quote when he gave me this book, he said, "This book has taught me more than any other book or any religion ever has."
Nice.
So to hear that, I was like, whoa.
That's deep, isn't it?
Yeah, let's see what this is about. And I think from there, it spiraled into other aspects of Stoicism and then it gave a foundation for our understanding to like build off of that as well. So that book was the foundation of it all.
And just to add to that, which is maybe somewhat on a tangent, but I'm going to add it anyway. You know how in very current media, you see sort of like the figure Andrew Tate, he talks quite openly about this sort of complex of the Matrix. I remember at that time when I gave Jake that book, I was hearing, like, obviously you're hearing these sort of, let's just say, conspiracy theories, and you're drawing these dots together. I mean, like Andrew Tate says, the reason he believes in God is because he's seen real evil. And I remember hearing all these wild stories, seeing these things come true, and I'm like, what is the point of life to an extent? Like, what are we really doing here? Like, why are people playing against each other in this way? I mean, I remember reading that book. I mean, I remember reading another book, which is something to do about the way of men. I think it's called The Way of Men. And it's like choosing a tribe. And I think those two books combined there really propelled my mentality and also injected purpose, which I think, in a way, just projecting now, magnetizes our friendship group, including me and Jake, but also the people around us.
And I remember when you came in my living room during COVID once when we was on lockdown, so you shouldn't really have been around my house. But I think it's after I finished the book, I said to Adam, like, should you be living differently based on what you're doing now? And his honest answer was, if I was really serious about this level of stoicism, I'd be a farmer somewhere in the mountains, just, you know, breeding chickens, cattle, whatever, and just like living that life away from everything that this world is built in now. Which, when you strip back to it, it's just survival and reproduction, right? And that's what that teaches you in this modern world.
So if you don't mind me asking you, gents, what is your highest qualification?
Mine's chartered accountancy.
Mine is partial accountancy.
Okay.
Yeah.